Okay. So I've set this up in a way where I don't have to like show my face because, again, I get really emotional whenever I talk about this particular incident. It was like a month before I ended up leaving my. It was like less than a month actually before I ended up leaving my house last year. And every time I talk about it, it's really hard to talk about because it sounds insane, and then I feel insane um, for the way that I explain it. And the only way that I can really explain it is by going back through old messages and reading the entire situation, like right after it happened, like maybe a day after it was happening. Because if I hadn't written it down in my text, I would not have remembered all of the events from this day. For some leading up context, in January to February of last year, my parent was getting a like promotion of some sort, and she was gonna go like on this trip to a different state. It's kind of far. I'm not gonna say where, um, but she was gonna go on this trip, and it was gonna be a week long. And my parent had never been away from me for that long, like leaving me by myself. And obviously, many parents, they get kind of worried about leaving their child for a while. But at this point, I am 20 um, in this particular portion. So I said to her, I'm fine with staying by myself. But she was not okay with that. And then some stuff happened in between that I'm kind of going to give some context about, but I'm not going to like get super into it. It's just the information that I want to give to make this story make a little bit more sense. But some of the important things to know is that um, my parent and I were having some issues with our neighborhood, people coming up to our door um, at crazy times of the night, sometimes when she wasn't there and I was the only one home, just me and my cat. Sorry to everybody on the screen. My cat is actively deciding she wants to lay in a different area that's like literally next to where she was laying. But anyway, I'm gonna keep going. Um, so my parent and I were dealing with some neighborhood issues with people knocking at our door. And sometimes it would be when I was the only one at home and I had to make some calls to police because of certain things that were going on with people knocking on our door. Um, but we had a security system. I felt pretty safe in the house. And then some financial stuff was also happening around this time. My parent was taking money from me, and I debated talking about this for a long time because I I I feel like when you're when you're a certain age, you should be able to give your parent money when they need it. But the problem is that my parent always took my money. She took my money from me when I was like my birthday money she'd take from time I was like a very young kid to up until a teenager. She took money from my graduation money. Like when I had a graduation party, she took money from that, and I didn't like say anything about it because she had thrown this entire party for my graduation. So I didn't say anything about it, and I didn't like raise a fuss about the fact that she took a large portion of my graduation money. Um, we had a shared bank account from like it was my account. I opened it when I was 18, but it was shared. Um, and I never knew how much I got paid at my first official job right out of high school, just because I, I guess I was too scared to really know what was in that bank account, and she mostly had the access to it. Um, that was something I could have controlled, but I didn't feel like I could control it. Um, And then every single time I got returns from my grants, my scholarships, borrowed money for school, any of that, all of those returns, some of it would go to her. A large majority of it would go to her. Um, and it wasn't always a large majority, it was just something that was normalized for me. It was okay, when I get my return, some of it's going to her. Um, so in my last year with her, I was starting to save up money to go back to my home state because I've been away from it for years. My best friends are all there, my support system is there, and I have been trying to go back to my home state for literal years. And I was starting to save up money from my returns, money from my job to try and go back to my home state. Um, and I thought it was only about 1,000, but apparently it was 1,500 because I'm looking at my text and there is this portion where my friend asked me if she returned or gave me back my $500, and I still have no idea what that $500 is about now. This is a text from like a year ago, and I have no recollection of the 500, but for precision's sake, it was 1,500 around that mark. Um, she took 500 from me maybe before this incident, and like right before this incident that I'm going to share, my parents and I were coming home. She had taken a really long time to get me from my college that day. And remember, I told you that she was getting a promotion of a sort. So she started to think that people were following us and people were listening in on our devices, listening in on our house, um, that someone had hacked into like our cars and to our phones. And I don't know if this is true or not. I like she accused me of calling her crazy and telling people about this, but I this is the first time I'm talking about this like in a space that's not just with a few people. And every time I've explained it, it's so insane that I get nervous. I get nervous like I am right now because I explain it and then it sounds insane. Literally, all of my experiences with my parent have made me feel like I'm going insane. And it makes it harder for me to explain them because I feel like I'm talking crazy. And I think a part of that comes from my neurodivergence. It makes me feel like all of my experiences that I have and that I talk about are stupid. And certain people have made me feel that way anytime I talk about certain experiences. But um, the beginning context of this story is that she thought someone was following us. She thought someone was listening in on us. Um, she wanted better protection for the house that we were staying at the time, which we were renting. It wasn't even our house. It wasn't like bought by us. It was a house that we were renting and we were planning to move out of. Um, and so she got me up one day and asked me for $1,000 to pay for a new storm door for the house and for a new camera. Now, the storm door was for the front door. The front door was a door we hadn't used in almost 2 years because we had put like this stuff on, like that stuff that like the rain stopper stuff on the bottom of it, like putty, just to keep bugs out, keep rain out. So she essentially stopped us from using the front door. So we hadn't used it in like 2 years. But with the addition of the storm door, we would be able to start using it again. This is important for the day that I had to leave the house. It's just like context to that. But basically, we needed to get a new storm door and we need to get a new alarm. Our alarm was like the battery was dead, and so she wanted to replace it, and she asked me for $1,000 to replace the alarm and to get a completely new storm door and get it installed. And I remember I hesitated a lot because I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to I don't know if I want to do that because again, this money is for a trip to go back to my home state. It's money that I've saved up for months. And she's like, no, I'll pay you back. But she hadn't paid me back for for the $500 from beforehand, I guess. And my friend did ask me in these texts that I'm getting ready to go over, but she was like, yeah, I need $1,000. And then she started crying because anytime I feel like we had a conversation like this, she would start crying, and I don't know if it was a manipulation tactic or something, but it always like made it harder for me to say no, because I remember I said I don't know if I want to do that, um, and she asked me, okay, so what do you want to do? How do you want to deal with this? Do you want to get the storm door, or do you want to get the alarm? And I remember I said, let's just replace the alarm. And then instead of agreeing with that, she was like, well, if we get just a new alarm and someone comes to the house and they start banging on the door and they get inside, there's not going to be anything to protect you. And then she said, if you just get the storm door and they break it down and there's no new alarm, then the alarm's not going to go off and the police aren't going to be notified. So then you're going to have to defend yourself. My grandma was going to come for half of that week that I was going to be alone. So she also threw my grandma into the mix of this. She was like, so if you and your grandma are here by yourselves and someone gets into the house, then they're going to get to your grandma. And are you going to be able to defend her, or is your grandma going to be able to defend this perpetrator if they get to you? Like, it was a lot of crazy situations, and I get it. You're nervous, but it was just things to make me basically give in to doing both of the things she originally wanted instead of her listening to what I wanted, because all I wanted was to get a new alarm because I always felt secure with our alarm. But she wanted the storm door and she wanted the alarm, so we got both. Um, so after she cried, I gave in basically, and that day I was starting to kind of come up with a plan of how I wanted to leave the house, because at this point she had taken a lot of money from me over the years, and I wasn't really sure how to deal with that because, again, it's a complicated situation of like, oh, I owe my parent money, um, and that's money that I essentially should be giving back to her because she's my parent. This is um, so I was starting to kind of come up with a plan of how I wanted to leave. And that's where all of this starts because um, I thought maybe she knew something at some point because of the situation that I'm about to talk about. And I know I keep talking about it without talking about it, but I swear I'm going to get into it. It's just a lot. So, this entire situation happened while I was still actively in classes, doing projects, doing school, doing exams. So, this is much more emotional for me just because I was really stressed at the time this happened. But here's where we're going to start. We're going to start, it's like my parent had just asked me that day about the storm door and the alarm, and this is the same day. I had texted my friends. We're gonna say my best friend, and we're gonna call the other person Kay. So Kay and my best friend had been like in contact with me. I had been texting them. I would text them pretty much every single day, and that day I was texting them because I was trying to figure out what was happening because my mom had picked me up late. Um, um, and at this point it was 6:54. I had texted. I was like, I'm still on campus. She hasn't come yet. It's almost 7. My cat needs food and we need to go to the grocery store. And my friend Kay is like, so she just left you on campus? And I'm like, no, I think she's changing her phone or something. I don't know, because she had called me from Cricket earlier that day and she seemed like she was getting a new phone. And I didn't know back at that time that she thought someone was listening in our phones. Again, I still don't know if that was true. Um, so she called me from Cricket, and then my neighbor's phone, and I'm really hoping I can get to next week. I'm exhausted, and I said, I have an exam Monday and next Monday, this project I have to do, and then more projects. And at this point, I was on call with my best friend, and as soon as my parent had like got to my campus, I got in the car with her, and she started blasting this music, and she wouldn't let me speak. She wouldn't let me talk. She wouldn't let me do anything. So I'm just sitting in silence because she like basically tells me to be quiet. And then we're sitting in silence, but she has the radio blasting. Um, and this is another side tangent. Literally a week or two before this, because she thought someone was following us, um, we had to we had to go stay at someone's house for a week. And like I couldn't tell anybody because I didn't know what to tell people. We had like made a police report because she thought someone was following us and like had like been listening in on us. So we stayed with someone at someone's house for a week, and I basically didn't get to see my cat for like almost a week because she suddenly decided to take us to stay somewhere else. It was insane. But this also pertains to the situation that's happening that I'm talking about right now. So my friend is like, my friend Kay is asking what's going on. I'm just sitting in the car. I can't text in this moment because at the time I was starting to get really nervous texting and calling friends around my parent, because she always would say things like, "Oh, you talk to your friends more than you talk to me," and she would make me feel really guilty for talking to them and not like having normal conversations with her anymore. Just because she always made me feel uncomfortable whenever I would talk to her about certain things, or she wouldn't listen to me. So I stopped really talking to her and I started talking to my friends more. But then she started making me uncomfortable about talking to them around her, because she would make me feel like I didn't talk to her. I only talked to them and I cared about them more, and it was a lot. Um, but we were in the car, music's blasting. We drive all the way back to our house, and instead of letting me go into my house, she takes my book bag from me, and she takes all of my stuff. And then I have to go over to my neighbor's house. My neighbors next door, they're very sweet. They let me like eat something because I was really hungry because it was almost 7. I hadn't eaten since maybe 12. Um, and they were feeding me and giving me juice. And then my parent finally comes back and she asked me for my phone, and I'm like, what? And she's like, just trust me. Do you like just trust me? I'm like, oh, okay. And at this point, my best friend is still on the phone, but he's in my ear. He's like in my earbud, so he can kind of hear what's happening, but not really. And she takes my phone, and I don't have any electronics now. I don't have any way to text my friends what's going on anymore, and I'm just basically just sitting there like, what is going on? And next door at our house, she's getting the new locks installed, as well as the new alarm and the storm door. A lot of things are happening at once, and I am not privy to pretty much any of it because I'm just like, what's going on? Because she doesn't tell me anything. She just leaves me at my neighbor's house, says trust me, and then just takes all my stuff. She basically confiscates all my items. And then she um oh my gosh, she comes back, uh, and she says we're gonna go on a little trip, and I was like, what is this? What does that mean? So she takes me downtown. At this point, I'm reading the text now directly because I texted all of this to my friends the next day after all of this happened. So she takes me downtown. Um, she takes me downtown. Sorry, I keep repeating things because I'm getting nervous again. Um, but so she takes me downtown and she's driving and saying, "Notice that no one is following us." And she starts writing to me on paper instead of talking. And she writes, "There's someone listening in on us, and I don't know who or for how long." And that her boyfriend at the time is being sued. And I was confused and I was worried because she's dated a lot of weird men before. And I thought that he did something, but it turns out that he was being sued because of something with a property he owns, because he was like a property manager of some sort. Um, so I was confused. And at this point, my best friend is texting, "This sounds like a flipping thriller movie." And he said stuff like that all the time, where he was like, "Oh my God, your life is like a drama movie, or like one of those Lifetime movies." And it sounds funny now, but it wasn't funny in the moment because I always felt like everything was making me go insane. And I have ADHD, and I'm getting an exam for autism next year. So I want you to imagine what going through all of this is like when you're undiagnosed, because I wasn't diagnosed back then. I didn't have medication. I have medication now and I'm diagnosed for ADHD. I'm trying to get diagnosed for autism. But imagine being undiagnosed and dealing with all this and not knowing what's going on in your brain, and then crazy stuff like this is happening and you still don't know, and it's a mess. But anyway, so I texted. My mom finally stops at the hazard lights, and she turns the hazard lights on, sorry. And we're on the side of an intersection in the middle of the city, and she turns to me and she's like, I don't know who's following us, but look around. What do you see? Like, she's asking me to look around the entire city. It's nighttime. It's like nighttime. I'm looking. I'm like confused. There's police cars in front of us. When we're at this intersection, she has the hazard lights on. And she goes, this also sounds insane, but this is genuinely what she said to me. She said, "The mayor loves you. The reverend loves you." Some guy at her church that she told this situation about people following us. She told them, and so she was like, "The reverend loves you." This and she's like, "Look around. This whole city loves you." I am genuinely not joking. I wish I could make this up. This I'm not making any of this up when I say it. This is genuinely what happened. I sound insane. This is insanity. This is insanity. So I'm lost. I'm in the car with her and I'm confused. I don't know what she's talking about. I'm looking at these police cars in front of us who seem to have like stopped a car farther away, but she's saying that the police have stopped people for us. um, I don't know what she was talking about. She had her hazard lights on, and she's like, "No one's coming up to us. Do you see that no one's coming up to us?" And I was like, "Yeah, because you have the hazard lights on an intersection." What? Um, and she essentially says, she's like, "They love you. I love you. I would move heaven and hell for you. Do you see all of this?" And she's still pointing at the police cars and trying to get like a reaction out of me of some sort. And I'm overwhelmed. And I'm confused. And I'm tired. And I'm hungry. I mean, I eat a little bit, but like I'm still tired because it's 7 p.m. and I have to get ready for exams and projects, and it it's like 7:40 p.m. at night, and I'm confused. And honestly, I'm a bit scared. It's I think it was a Friday night at this point, and I was confused. Um, so she says we need to go talk to her boyfriend because he doesn't know that he's like any of this, like about the fact that someone she thinks someone is following us, or that like there's a situation happening. So basically she thought that the person suing her boyfriend was the one following us. I think. Um, I don't know why that would pertain to us, but that's what she thought. She thought that there was someone, the person suing her boyfriend at the time, was listening in on us and listening in our cars, and that they were trying to get a ruse out of us or something. Um, so she was like, "I need you to fix your face before we go over there because the twins are there." He has two twin girls. Um, and so I was uncomfortable. And she's saying, "Is there anything you want to say?" And I was confused. And I'm like, "I don't know," because she just threw all of this information at me. I'm really tired. I don't understand what's happening. And she's driving there. And she drives there and he doesn't answer the door when we get there, because it's about 8 at night now and he's probably asleep because he has twins that are 2 years old. um uh so we get back in the car. She drives off from her boyfriend's, and now that we're back in the car, she turns to me and she's like, "So do you have anything you want to say, because I'm listening, and we have until 6 a.m. That's how long we have to wait to use our phones in the house, because apparently someone's listening in on our phones and watching our phone and watching us." Um, and I said in my text, "Don't ask me who." She said it was her coworker, and then she said it was her supervisor, and now it's her company who fired her the day after election day, because she got fired after election day last year. Um, Not last year, but the year before last year, like in that November. Um, so now I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say because she's throwing all this information at me. I don't know what to say, and I don't know what she wants me to say. And she says, well, I've been doing everything, and you need to start talking. So at this point, this pertains to the fact that we have been arguing back and forth about me not going to church, about me not conversating with her in a way that she wants, and me like just feeling I told her that the reason that I kind of clammed up on her for so long is because she would yell and she would make me feel a certain way, and I don't think it really got around to her because she didn't really seem to understand. I guess I thought she did, but apparently she didn't. And I thought we were like understanding that if you want me to start conversating with you more, you have to like treat me like a person, I guess, and not like yell at me and like immediately just make me feel like you're the superior one, and I'm just supposed to listen to everything instead of actually having an argument or anything, or like just standing up for myself. Um, so I say, I don't know what you want me to say. I can't read your mind. And she says, you stop talking to me and you don't communicate, and you think your world is those four walls. And four walls, she means my room, because at some point I started spending a lot of time in my bedroom, just because I didn't feel safe anywhere else. She says, if your best friend and my other friend were here, you talk. You get in the car, put your headphones on, and you fall asleep every single time you get in the car with me. And I say, I didn't know you felt that way, but if you feel like I shut you out, it's probably because of what happened with me saying I don't want to go to church and you pushing my boundaries. So when I first told my parent that I don't like going to church, she was like, okay, let's do a compromise. I'll take you once a month and that'll be it. She broke that compromise almost immediately, and she took me several different times. She took me several different times, and she broke that boundary even when I would say, I don't want to do this because it's not even been a month and you keep breaking my boundary. And one time she got me to go by saying, well, it's my boy, it's Father's Day and it's my boyfriend. We're celebrating my boyfriend, and I want to surprise him by having all of you at the church when he sees us, because he has two other older daughters, and he was like, I want all of you to surprise him. So I had to go that day too, and I pretty much disassociated that day. But um, I told her she was breaking my boundaries, and she says, I'm the mom and you're the child, and since you think you're an adult, you can figure out life then, she said. By this time, again, I am 20 years old, so I am an adult. This is, and I say, Mom, you're not listening. And the reason I get upset is because you keep yelling and shutting me down. She says, if this was grandma, I wouldn't talk to her like this with disrespect. And I say, I'm not disrespecting you. I'm trying to have a conversation, and you keep trying to tell me to shut up. Because at some point, she would start saying shut up whenever I started arguing back during this point. Um, she would just tell me straight up to shut up, because I stopped doing the thing where I would just give in to what she said and I would start arguing back with her. And I would be very calm about it, but she would just keep telling me shut up because I wasn't being quiet when she told me to. Um, so she says she says to be quiet over and over because I won't stop talking, and I'm saying I want to have a conversation, and you're telling me to shut up right now. Why are you doing that? No, I'm not going to shut up. Please have a conversation with me. And she's okay. She's like, okay, fine. You want to talk to me like that? Tell grandma. Let's air it all out because you want to talk to me like this. So at this point, my grandma has no idea what's been going on for the past few weeks with the people following us thing that she thinks is happening and people listening in on us. So she expects me to tell her now for some reason while we're having this weird argument that I don't want to have. I just want to talk. This is she calls my grandma, and I get to talk to my grandma on the phone about how my parent keeps trying to tell me to shut up and not be quiet. Um, but so my grandma is my grandma. She tries to kind of mediate the situation, and it kind of just ends with us all talking about something completely unrelated because we all get distracted, and we don't really fix anything basically. Um, but she does try to get my grandma and me to understand where she's coming from with the security in the house. Like, if she leaves and someone comes up, what am I gonna do? And I give her a bunch of different scenarios. She throws a different scenario to me each time. She's like, okay, so what if someone comes up to the house and they try to break in? I'm like, I'll call the police. I'll call our neighbors. Our neighbors are very reliable and respectful and helpful. And they were a little bit sick that week, but they could still call the police or someone could come over. She says, well, what if your grandma and you are in the house and the neighbors can't get to you? Then the police, I'm calling the police. Like, we have other family members close by that we could also get to call, and also I could call you, or I could call your boyfriend who is also here in town. And she says, okay, so what happens if my boyfriend has a emergency, he can't drive you to school? And I say, I'll Uber then. This is, and she says, what happens um if she just, it's just a bunch of crazy scenarios that she keeps trying to throw at me to try and basically get me to be stuck and say, well, I don't know what to do in that situation, so she can say, well, I think you should come with me on my trip, because that's what she wanted. She wanted me to come with her on her trip, for her job promotion. She didn't want me to stay home, and I had been reluctant because I had exams, I have school projects. I don't want to leave for a week, and I didn't want to do that. Um, but that is essentially what she was trying to do. She was trying to get me to say I don't know, so she could put me in a corner to basically make me say, okay, so I don't know what to do in this situation, so I guess I have to go with you. And I know that because she also wanted to track me at some point, and I told her no. Um, so we kind of get off the phone with my grandma at some point. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. But we kind of got off the phone with my grandma at some point because it didn't really feel like we were fixing anything. Um, so we got back home finally, and this is where things go even more haywire. And I'm sorry because this is a long video and it makes no sense. It makes no sense. But um, so she and I get home. She won't let us talk inside the house. And I say in my text, I don't remember how much happened, but basically, um, she saw, or well, she thought she saw something. She did this herself earlier. So earlier, before we had left the house, she had unplugged um, our our alarm system. And usually, what happens with our alarm system, if it's not in the surge protector, the alarm isn't working a certain way. Um, so it kind of like goes off at a certain point, and when it's unplugged, it goes off in a certain way. That's hard to like turn off, especially when you don't know the code. Which gets me into my next point. She made us change the codes as soon as we got home. She made us change the codes, and she made me write on this piece of paper, but I couldn't use my phone, so I couldn't write it on my phone because she wouldn't let me use my phone because she was like, someone's listening in on us, so I'm resetting the phones until 6 a.m. or something. So she wouldn't let me use my phone. So she made me write it on this piece of paper. And it wasn't a regular piece of paper. It was like a bunch of pieces of paper where she had all of these scribbled up notes everywhere. And so I write it on this stupid piece of paper. And then she puts it away somewhere where I don't remember where she put it away. But basically, it's really hard to find that specific code on a piece of paper with all a bunch of writing on it because she writes sporadically. Um, so at some point, she sets off the alarm. She sets off the glass breaker sensor on the alarm herself, mind you. I don't know why she did this. I don't know why she did this. um, but she sets off the glass breaker sensor on the alarm, and ADT calls us because they're the ones controlling the alarm. So they ask us what's going on. I can't speak, basically. At this point, I'm so overwhelmed that I can't really get a word out. And she starts lying and says that the alarm is doing things on its own, even though she was the one doing it, because I saw her. She had unplugged the alarm and she had made us change the codes and she had set up the glass breaker. all of these things together combined, we can't turn off the alarm ourselves. And she's saying that the alarm is doing things on its own and that it's being manipulated, blah, blah, blah. So earlier that day, the alarm got installed, and she believed that that day, the ADT guy that came in to install the alarm put listening devices in the new alarm parts, and then he left, and he left without like getting like his clipboard. So he never came back that day, and she's upset, and she's thinking he didn't give us paperwork. So she's saying he literally like put all of these things in here to manipulate us. At this point, I'm going to say this right now, I think she was committing defamation because I knew this guy's full name. um and I still to this day do not know what happened to that ADT man. I'm assuming that he might have had something happening, which is why he couldn't come back that day. And honestly, after this call, I'm pretty sure they didn't want him coming back because at this point, my mom seemed like she was a danger to him because she was accusing him of putting listening devices inside our alarms. This is not a like super big tech alarm. It's like a very simple alarm. I don't know where she got this from, but she thought he put listening devices in our glass breaker sensor in our alarm. I don't know. But the alarm's still going off. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. She keeps telling me not to say anything. I can't really say anything because I'm so overwhelmed and I'm literally about to have a meltdown. I literally was so incredibly overwhelmed by the situation. I did not know what to do. Um I'm still texting my friends everything that's happening here. So I say, so eventually I go to bed. Eventually I go to bed um, because apparently we figured out how to turn off the alarm. I don't remember. Like at this point, the memories got so incredibly warped that I started texting sporadically about the night that day because I couldn't remember when certain things were happening. This is what happens when you have trauma and things are happening so quickly that you can't really articulate them, especially because I have disorders. It makes it very hard for me to reliably remember something, which is why I text all of this. And I text it very sporadically. So basically I just said I went to bed at some point. I don't remember when I went to bed. I don't remember if we turned off the alarm. I don't remember any of that. But I texted, I'm in bed. And then later on in that night, my mom called ADT, the cops, and EMTs. She called the EMTs because my neighbors were getting sick left and right, and she has thyroid stuff going on. So she felt kind of off, and she called the EMTs to the house. And then she left with the EMTs and was taken to the hospital. She came back and she called ADT again. Um, and then we were sitting. When we were settling again at the house, she set off the glass breaker again. Again, I do not know why. This